All right, let's talk about government spending. Sometimes a purchase looks totally normal on paper, but when you dig a little deeper, wow, it really makes you wonder about priorities. And this story, it all kicks off with one absolutely massive number. 28.15 crore rupees. Just let that sink in for a second. That is a huge amount of money for the Meghalaya government to spend on a single thing. But here's the kicker. The real shock isn't just the price. It's what they bought and, get this, where they bought it.
Yep, you heard that right. This wasn't some new building in the state capital, Shillong. It wasn't even in Meghalaya at all. They bought a building in Bangalore. We're talking 2,500 kilometers away. So, what is going on here? Let's break this whole thing down.
Okay, Section 1. A puzzling purchase. Before we get into the why, let's just lay out the basic facts of what actually happened.
So here's the play-by-play. The date is November 27th, 2025. There's an auction going on for assets from the infamous IMA Jewels, right? And boom, the Meghalaya government steps in and buys a building. The official reason? They needed a government office in Bangalore, a liaison office in a big city. On the surface, that sounds kind of reasonable maybe. Well, hold that thought, because this is exactly where the whole thing starts to get really weird.
All right, Section 2. Cracks in the foundation. This is where we really start to see the problem. We need to look at this big purchase and then look at what's actually happening financially back home in Meghalaya. And this right here, this is the heart of the whole issue. On one hand, you've got the government spending a fortune on a fancy office thousands of kilometers away. And on the other hand, well, you've got the reality on the ground in Meghalaya, a crushing debt, schools in rural areas literally falling apart, and bills that just aren't getting paid. It's like two completely different worlds. Let's talk about that debt for a second, because it really puts this whole purchase into perspective. A 43% debt-to-GDP ratio? What does that even mean? Well, it means the state's total debt is almost half the value of everything its economy produces in an entire year. That's a lot. So for a government that's already in that deep to go out and make a purchase like this, it's not just a little odd, it's something you really have to question.
And if you thought that was bad, it gets even crazier. A report from the CAG, that's the government's own auditor, found that the state failed to collect over 1,577 crore rupees in revenue. That's money that was owed to the government, just not collected. So they're leaving money on the table while simultaneously spending big on out-of-state real estate. Make it make sense.
So you gotta ask, what could possibly be the logic here? Is there some kind of political theory that explains this kind of behavior? Turns out, there is, and honestly, it fits this situation like a glove. It's a concept known as the Oedipus complex.
So what is the Oedipus complex? It's basically this political urge to build big, flashy, impressive things. Edifices, to show off how powerful and modern you are. The huge problem, though, is that this stuff often gets built while the boring but essential stuff, actual public services, gets ignored. You see it all over the world. Think of those giant empty airports or massive stadiums that are barely used.
This quote really just nails it, doesn't it? Governments building monuments to themselves while basic services languish. It's about looking good, not doing good. So you have to wonder, does a brand new, shiny office in Bangalore maybe, just maybe, fit that description? That's the question we're wrestling with here.
Okay, Section 4. Let's really talk about what 28 crores buys. Because 28 crores is just a number, right? It's kind of abstract. To really get it, we need to talk about the opportunity cost. What else could have been done with that money? What did Meghalaya have to give up for this one building?
So what was the real trade-off for an office in Bangalore? Let's actually put some numbers on it. Let's see what that 28 crores could have meant for the people actually living in Meghalaya.
Okay, first up, 280. That's the number of brand new classroom blocks that could have been built. 280. Just think about the difference that would make for kids in rural schools.
Or how about this? 56. That money could have paid for 56 new primary health centers. That's crucial, basic health care brought directly to communities that are desperate for it.
What about education? 14,000. That's how many students could have received a full year of scholarships, a direct investment in the next generation.
Or infrastructure. 93 kilometers of new rural roads, connecting villages, helping local farmers get their goods to market, literally changing people's daily lives. Instead, one office building, 2,500 kilometers away. The contrast is just staggering.
So when you see all that, when you see the context, you're just left with some really big, important questions.
And that brings us to our final section, which is all about what we, as citizens, should be asking. Think of this as your Socratic research mission. The source material lays out a pretty clear path for anyone who wants to dig deeper. You can ask the General Administration Department for the document that justifies this whole thing. You can try to find out the annual operating costs. How much does it cost just to keep the lights on? And then you ask the big one. Who is this building really for?
And it really starts with the most basic question of all. Was a cost-benefit analysis ever even done? I mean, before you spend 28 crore rupees, shouldn't you sit down and actually weigh the pros and cons for the people you represent? Seems like fiscal responsibility 101.
And let's just get super practical for a minute. How many citizens from Meghalaya are realistically going to use this office in Bangalore in any given year? 10? 100? 1,000? Whatever that number is, does it even come close to justifying this price tag, especially when you think about everything else that money could have done?
And that leads us to the final, unavoidable question, the one that just hangs in the air after you hear all this. When you look at the debt, the state of the schools, all that money left on the table, and all the things that could have been built instead, you just have to ask, does this serve the people of Meghalaya, or does it serve its political elite? And that's a question worth thinking about.